Good afternoon. Chief Madera Arredondo of the Minneapolis Police Department. Today, this is a wonderful opportunity to come before you with distinguished leaders from representing both our local, our state, our county, our federal partners, as well as our Minnesota National Guard. As many of you know, we have been planning for the upcoming trial for the last several months, approximately the last 8 months. The planning that we are doing, which is entitled Operation Safety Net, is guided under really two core principles: prevention of damage to property and crimes, as well as also ensuring First Amendment constitutional rights for those who wish to peacefully gather and assemble and demonstrate. We are here today to let not only the city of Minneapolis, our counties, representing St. Paul and throughout our metro regional area, but we're really here to let the state of Minnesota know that we are very confident in the safety, planning, and preparation that all of the leaders that you're going to hear from talk about today. And so with that, I'd like to introduce my good friend and distinguished Chief of Police for the St. Paul Police Department, Chief Todd Axtell.
Thank you, Chief. Hello, everyone. Todd Axtell, St. Paul Police Department. So today really is a powerful day for us to be part of such a coalition of public safety professionals throughout the state of Minnesota and the region, coming together in this collaboration to talk about Operation Safety Net and the East Metro Response Group. It makes it abundantly clear that the region and the state is certainly well prepared for anything that comes our way in the next couple of months. In St. Paul, we've heard from people who live in our city, who work in our city, who run businesses in our city, people who visit our city, and people who plan on making their voices heard in our community. And while they may have different and divergent views of what they would like to see, one thing is abundantly clear, and that is everyone cares about our community in St. Paul. And so do we. The St. Paul Police Department cares about what happens in St. Paul. In St. Paul, we're not just the police department, we're your police department. And that's why we're proud to partner with Operation Safety Net, Chief Arredondo, and all of our partners on the stage today with local, state, and federal partners. None of us are big enough to handle the issues ahead of us with one voice or one department. So we're coming together to make sure everyone stays safe in our community. As I said, your local, state, and federal partners are well prepared. They're certainly well trained, and they stand ready to keep the peace and maintain public safety through trusted service with respect. And at the end of the day, we all want a safe community. And I want people to know in this state, in the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, that you're in good hands. We're going to move forward together to make sure everyone has the ability to express their First Amendment rights and do it in a safe manner so that property isn't damaged and people aren't injured. And we are going to do everything we can to make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sheriff Dave Hutchinson from the Hampton County Sheriff's Office. My agency is in charge of the court security. We continue to plan and prepare for the next week jury selection, with number one goal being protecting First Amendment right, but also making sure we protect people and property. The Hampton County Sheriff's Office will provide Operation Safety Net with intelligence gathering as needed to help stop any sort of violence. We're going to use technology, social media, to kind of organize so we can see what these organized groups are doing, if it's nonviolent or peaceful. And this intelligence is going to make us be able to spend our resources where we need to. This was helpful last summer after we had a few days of unrest to kind of get back on track in public safety, and we're going to utilize it this time as well. And I think it's important to note that these men and women up here and the men and women who are going to be on the streets or in our court facilities know that we are taking this seriously. We're trying to be as kind as we can be and sympathetic to the trauma some people feel. But don't mistake our kindness for weakness. We are prepared as any city in America could be, and we are prepared as we can be to quell violence and destruction. The court process will go on, and if people are being violent and destructive, they will get arrested and they will go to jail. We want this to be peaceful. Everybody up here wants peace, and the way to get peace is to have justice, and the way to get justice is to have these trials go on with a peaceful resolution. Thank you. I'm going to introduce the one and only Commissioner Harrington.
One is probably too much. So, John Harrington, Commissioner, Department of Public Safety. Two things I want to highlight, and the first I think is really important, which is that according to our partners at the Department of Homeland Security and our partners from the FBI, there is no imminent, credible local threat to the trial today. That doesn't mean we're not tracking. It doesn't mean we're not asking all the right questions, that we're not ringing all the right bells to try and make sure that as time goes on, as we get, I think we're now 7 days away from jury selection, we're a couple of weeks away from when the trial will actually start in earnest, we're going to continue to gather information. And the other piece that I think is incredibly important is that we're sharing the information. There are no silos where the information is going to get bottlenecked. If I've got it, everyone in this room will have it, and anyone else that has an operational need to know will have the information. So we are absolutely in lockstep working to make sure that information sharing and intelligence gathering is going to go forward, because you cannot fight an opponent that you don't know about. You can't stop a bad thing from happening unless you know it's coming. And there are ample opportunities, whether it's through social media or through declarations that individual groups, some of which were here before, have made to make us have a significant amount of concern, enough concern that all of these folks up here have put together Operation Safety Net and have brought these folks together to make sure that nothing bad is going to happen. Our information is going to inform our decisions. And so as we move people into the right places at the right time, it is going to be absolutely essential that we have good information. And I'm hoping that the folks that hear this, both from the news media and from the community, are going to share with us the information they have. Last summer, a lot of the calls I had on the fires and the arsons came from individual members of our community who were calling me up to tell us about incendiary devices and bottles of gasoline that were cached in their backyards and in their alleys. I can tell you, we moved on that information we got from the community, and because of that, the FBI and the U.S. Attorney has been able to prosecute 13, 14 people on federal cases involving arson. We are going to use the information both to prevent bad things from happening and also to hold people accountable. And now I have the opportunity, and it really is an opportunity in my case, to introduce the acting U.S. Attorney. I think this is his first public appearance, Anders Folk.
Thanks, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anders Folk, and I am the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota, and I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon. The United States Attorney's Office and all of our federal law enforcement partners, which includes, among others, the FBI, the ATF, and the U.S. Marshal Service, are all leaning in to ensure that public safety is maintained and, as importantly, that everyone's First Amendment rights are protected surrounding the upcoming trial. As you can see by everyone's presence here this afternoon, this will be a shared effort. Local, state, county, and federal resources are going to be working together to ensure the safety of our community. In addition to supporting state and local security measures, federal law enforcement will devote additional resources to respond to any acts or threats of violence. And my law enforcement partner, FBI Special Agent in Charge Michael Paul, will discuss those with you here in a moment. Make no mistake, we welcome everyone's right to be heard, and as Americans, we all understand the precious nature of our rights under the First Amendment. Nothing could be more important. We cannot, however, allow violence and destruction. In accordance with our shared mission to maintain public safety, the United States Attorney's Office and our federal law enforcement partners will not hesitate to hold people accountable or groups accountable who are engaged in violence, the destruction of property, or threats to others in violation of federal law. It's important that we work together to keep our community safe, including reporting to law enforcement any suspicious activity, as the Commissioner noted, any threats, any other acts of violence. Thank you all, and let me turn the microphone over now to Special Agent in Charge Michael Paul to discuss the federal effort in more detail.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Paul. I am the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Minneapolis Field Office, which serves Minnesota and the Dakotas. The Minneapolis office has been an active participant in Operation Safety Net planning since late last summer. I want to thank Chief Arredondo for establishing a very meaningful and collaborative working group and for the invitation to speak today. The FBI will be actively supporting the collective law enforcement effort to protect the Twin Cities and surrounding metropolitan area during the upcoming trials. The FBI has a robust and productive partnership with the Minnesota law enforcement community, and we've already committed significant time and resources to this particular joint effort. Our involvement in Operation Safety Net can be categorized generally into three core law enforcement functions: intelligence, critical incident response, and investigations. The FBI is an intelligence-driven organization. A key part of our national security mission is to lead and coordinate intelligence efforts which inform actions to protect the citizens of Minnesota and the United States. For both trials, we will be facilitating an Intelligence Operations Center, or IOC, which integrates personnel from several federal, state, and local law enforcement partners, including the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, just to name a few. Leading up to, during, and after the trials, our collective group of intelligence analysts, special agents, law enforcement officers, and National Guard personnel will be working in the IOC to develop, assess, and share intelligence among law enforcement partners. Intelligence analysts in the FBI's 56 field offices across the country will also be sharing relevant intelligence as they collect it or produce it with us here in the Twin Cities. While I can't discuss specific intelligence assets or investigative methods or means, I can tell you the FBI is leveraging significant resources to ensure the safety and security of everyone involved in the trials. The FBI has been and continues to track any and all threats related to the trial. Today, I can also corroborate what Commissioner Harrington had to say. We don't have any current known specific or credible threats. However, we know from experience that the threat environment and the threat picture evolves daily. This is a fluid time of heightened rhetoric and publicized and politicized information across social media and the internet. Threats can transition from aspirational to operational very quickly, and our job will be to sift through the threatening communications to determine which are true indicators of an escalation towards criminal activity or violence. If and when the threats cross this threshold, FBI Minneapolis will work hard with the partners you see in front of you here today to disrupt and mitigate them before violence occurs. The FBI works hard to mitigate and disrupt violent actors, as do our partners, but in the event that there is a critical incident, the FBI is also prepared to respond with a variety of different specialty assets. We've collaborated closely with the local partners to offer specialized FBI response capabilities, including special weapons and tactics resources, crisis negotiators, evidence response, critical incident response, hazardous incident response, and weapons of mass destruction response. Additionally, we've secured regional and national FBI assets in the incident that additional resources are needed to bolster the local joint efforts. Beyond our intelligence and critical incident response, our office's core investigative resources will be prioritized to assess any investigative activity involving criminal or violent actions in violation of federal law. We'll work closely with our federal partners and the U.S. Attorney's Office to leverage every potential federal statute to bring extremists to justice. Leading through the Joint Terrorism Task Force, we'll be aggressive in this task, working within our established FBI policies and DOJ investigative guidelines to ensure the preservation of civil liberties. All of our FBI personnel will be on duty or in a ready to recall status, including our personnel resources throughout the tri-state area of responsibility. Our work will not be unlike the efforts of last summer or earlier this year, investigating and following up on extremist violence in the Twin Cities and Washington, D.C. As you know, those efforts continue today. We ask that the public be vigilant and remain aware of their surroundings and report that suspicious activity to law enforcement quickly so that we can take appropriate action. Your tips and information regarding violence and criminal activity in the recent past have been critical, as was previously mentioned, to all of our efforts to identify and investigate criminal extremists looking to damage or endanger Minnesota communities. If violence or other criminal activity should occur in the near future, we will announce some specific methods for citizens to share tips and video or still shots with law enforcement at that time. Again, thank you for your participation in protecting the Twin Cities and the rights of those in our local communities. And again, thank you to Chief Arredondo for leading this effort. And I have the pleasure of introducing next Mr. Drew Evans from BCA.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Drew Evans. I am the superintendent at the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. In addition to our role associated with the investigation of this matter that we'll be playing throughout the trial, the Minnesota Fusion Center will be supporting the FBI and our other partners from the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, Metro Transit PD, among others. And the point of all that when it comes to the criminal intelligence that we will be examining is that our goal throughout this entire trial is to keep everyone safe. If people want their voices heard, that they wish to protest, we want to see it done in a peaceful manner. And we will let the intelligence, as the commissioner said, guide our decision-making process. And while there is no specific identifiable threat at this time, we reiterate that we need people to see something that's suspicious or there's information about criminal activity that's planned, that they relay that information to their police department, to their sheriff's office, to the FBI, to the BCA, because we are committed together to make sure that anyone who wishes to be in our state and commit criminal activity that jeopardizes the safety of our citizens or our businesses in the Twin Cities area, that we stand ready to address that quickly so that this trial can go on peacefully throughout. That criminal behavior will be vetted through the Multi-Agency Command Center that will be routed there or through the police department. Lastly, that we are not just focusing on the Twin Cities metropolitan area. This is a statewide issue. And if other areas of the state become a target for any other reason, that's exactly what this group is here to do, and that we will respond appropriately, and that we have resources dedicated at the state level to ensure that we're able to respond and assist our local partners as well, much as the BCA does and others here do in every other day-to-day work. And so with that, I will turn it over to Colonel Langer from the State Patrol.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Langer. I have the honor and privilege of serving as Chief of the Minnesota State Patrol. Just a few comments to wrap things up. I think what you've heard from my colleagues from the local, county, state, and federal level is a common theme here, that planning plus prevention plus coordination equals prevention. And for us, prevention equals success. That's our goal, first and foremost. The planning continues. It's complicated. It's complex. There are a lot of moving parts, and it's a dynamic plan that isn't sitting on a shelf, but it's evolving and getting better every single day as information comes in for us to be as prepared as we possibly can. In fact, just last week, there was a tabletop exercise involving over 90 professionals that came together and worked through potential scenarios that we might face to ensure that there's good coordination, there's good planning, communication, appropriate resource allocation, and an appropriate response to things that we hope never happen. This week, you can expect to see additional fortification of buildings around the Twin Cities metropolitan area with fencing and barriers put up. You can see that effort by driving around, but what you can't see are the dozens and dozens and dozens of professionals that are hard at work, literally around the clock, to ensure that peace is maintained in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis, and across Minnesota during this period in our state's history. And lastly, to those of you who have been concerned or expressed concern about the incredible preventative posture and the resources that will be deployed, we hear you. We hear you and we understand your concern, but at the same time, we just ask that you remember what it was like in May and June. Remember the property destruction, remember the violence, remember the challenges that prevented people from coming and expressing their First Amendment rights. And last but not least, if you are coming to peacefully protest, this group of people standing up here with me welcomes you, and you have our support. Thank you.